Sugar is everywhere in our food, hidden in vegetables, fruits, rice, noodles, drinks, and more. Once consumed, these sugars are broken down by our digestive system into two simple sugars: glucose and fructose. Glucose is the body's primary energy source, derived mostly from starchy foods. It enters the bloodstream via the small intestine and is circulated to every cell to provide fuel. After it's used, it breaks down into carbon dioxide and water, which are then expelled from the body. In short, glucose is essential, biocompatible, and beneficial. Fructose, however, is a different story. Fructose, commonly found in sweet foods, is far sweeter than glucose. The most familiar source is table sugar, which is half glucose and half fructose. Though both are sugars, their molecular structures are entirely different. Glucose has a 6-sided ring, while fructose has a 5-sided ring. This difference in structure results in dramatically different metabolic pathways in the body. Unlike glucose, which the whole body uses, fructose is processed almost exclusively by the liver, much like alcohol. And as we all know, the liver is our detox center. So, could it be that fructose is as harmful as alcohol? Fructose and the liver. A small portion of fructose in the liver is converted into glucose, but most of it is transformed into triglycerides, a form of fat. If these fats build up in the liver, they can lead to fatty liver disease. If they travel through the bloodstream, they contribute to metabolic syndrome, raising the risk of obesity, diabetes, and cardiovascular disease. Worse still, fructose may even play a role in rising cancer rates. There's a popular notion that cancer cells love sugar. And Dr. Lorenzo Cohen, a professor of oncology at MD Anderson Cancer Center in Texas, thinks there's some truth to it. In 2015, Cohen's team conducted a study on mice genetically prone to breast cancer. They split the mice into two groups. One was fed a typical Western diet high in fructose and sucrose, and the other was given a moderate starch glucose-based diet. By the time the mice reached 6 months of age, 50% of the sugar-fed group had developed breast cancer, often with lung metastases. In contrast, only 30% of the starch-fed mice developed tumors. While mice aren't humans, the results are alarming, especially when considering that Americans consume over 30 teaspoons of sugar daily on average, 5 times. The World Health Organization's WHO, who recommended limit of 6 teaspoons 25 grams per day. What about the sugar in our drinks? Avoiding this excess isn't easy. Just 1 can of soda contains 33 grams of sugar, already over the daily limit. Think you're being healthier by switching to milk tea? Not really. A typical cup of milk tea contains 34 grams of sugar. Even freshly squeezed juice isn't as innocent as it seems. In the documentary, That Sugar Film, director Damon Gamo juiced 4 apples into a small cup. Easy to drink? But that tiny glass packed 16 teaspoons of sugar. If he had eaten the apples whole, he might only have managed to, thanks to the filling fiber they contain. The juice, however, strips away that fiber, leaving only a concentrated sugar shot. This raises a question. If we've known about the dangers of sugar for years, why haven't things changed? Why are sugary drinks still wildly popular? Why do people still underestimate sugar's impact? Because sugar doesn't just make us happy, it's addictive. Can sugar be as addictive as alcohol? A study at Université Victor Ségal in Bordeaux in France put this to the test using lab rats. The setup involved 2 levers. Pressing lever C dispensed sugar water for 20 seconds, while lever S provided a tiny dose of a highly addictive drug. Initially, rats had no clear preference, but by day 11, they leaned heavily toward sugar. By day 15, 94% of rats choose sugar over the drug. Skeptical? So were many. But in 2008, scientists at Princeton University confirmed the findings. They withheld food from rats for several hours, like humans skipping breakfast, then fed them high-sugar foods. As the rats consumed the sugar, their brains released dopamine, the feel-good chemical that plays a key role in addiction. After a month, the rats' brains had undergone changes similar to those seen in drug addicts. Lead researcher Professor Bart Hobel explained, "Craving and relapse are key components of addiction, and we've demonstrated them in sugar-fed rats." Yes, rats can become addicted to sugar. But if sugar is this powerful, why are we only seeing these effects now, when humans have eaten sugar for thousands of years? Let's rewind time. As early as 8000 BC, people in Guinea, Africa, were cultivating sugarcane. By the 5th century BC, sugar-making had spread to India, then the Arab world, and eventually China, via the Silk Road. In the 11th century, crusaders brought sugar back to Europe. But Europe's climate wasn't ideal for sugarcane, so for 400 years, sugar remained a luxury item, until Columbus discovered the Americas. The climate there was perfect for sugarcane, prompting European powers, Spain, the Netherlands, France, Britain, to build plantations and kickstart the global sugar trade. With sugar flowing into Europe, prices dropped and availability soared. In the 19th century, during Napoleon's rule, Britain blockaded France's trade routes, cutting off sugar supply. Desperate, the French developed sugar extraction from beets. Now, with sugar pouring in from both cane and beets, it became an everyday household item. But not long after, people's health started to get worse. They got cavities, became overweight, and had other health problems. Not many people noticed this. Until 1955. That year, U.S. President Dwight Eisenhower suffered a heart attack and was sidelined for 6 weeks. The public panicked and heart disease became a national concern. At the time, scientists were divided. One camp blamed sugar. The other blamed fat. Caught in the middle was the sugar industry, increasingly nervous that it would take the fall. To shift the blame, the industry approached scientists for a reassuring study. Enter Unsel Keys, a professor at the University of Minnesota, who happily accepted the job. In 1958, Keys proposed the fat hypothesis. The idea that saturated fat, not sugar, was the main culprit behind heart disease. He conducted a famous 7-country study, which claimed that saturated fat intake directly correlated with heart disease. The study catapulted Keys to fame. The U.S. government, convinced by his theory, released dietary guidelines in 1980 recommending low-fat diets. Americans complied. Fat became the enemy. Sugar? It got a free pass. Cakes got sweeter, sodas more common. But strangely, heart disease and obesity rates didn't go down, they skyrocketed. Why? Because Keys cherry-picked data? Of 22 countries surveyed, only 7 fit his hypothesis. He excluded the other 15, effectively faking the data. The sugar industry cheered. One man wasn't fooled. John Yudkin, a British nutritionist. His experiments showed that sugar, not fat, correlated with heart disease. In 1972, he published a book titled Pure, White, and Deadly, warning of sugar's dangers. But the sugar industry hit back hard. Keys dismissed Yudkin. The British Sugar Bureau mocked him. The World Sugar Research Organization called his book science fiction. Eventually, Yudkin was ostracized, his reputation destroyed, and his warnings buried. For decades, no one dared challenge Big Sugar. But truth has a way of resurfacing. In 2014, Time magazine featured butter on its cover, challenging anti-fat dogma. In 2015, WHO urged the world to cut sugar intake. In 2016, U.S. dietary guidelines capped daily sugar intake at 50 grams. In 2018, the UK implemented a sugar tax. By 2022, Europe's Food Safety Agency, EFSA, warned, sugar intake should be as low as possible. But after a lifetime of sugar, can we change? Is quitting sugar as hard as quitting smoking? Damon Gameau, the That Sugar film director, ran a personal experiment. For 60 days, he consumed 40 teaspoons of sugar a day, the average American intake. By the end, he'd gained 8.5 kilograms, added 10 centimeters to his waistline, and developed fatty liver disease. Worst of all, he found himself addicted. When he tried quitting, he faced headaches, insomnia, mood swings, classic withdrawal symptoms. But after 2 months, his health rebounded, and he felt more energetic, happier, and finally free. Fructose may be sweet, but it comes with a bitter cost. From liver damage to cancer, addiction to obesity, and a century of misdirection, the truth about sugar is finally coming to light. So, what will we do about it?
Subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss what's coming next. Share it, because some stories are meant to be discovered together. And stay curious. I'll see you in the next chapter.